So now I've been talking about me coming to a closure of explaining the timeline with all these prophecies and passages, um, saying that I will come up and do some other video on more about the closure. But I did come up with something else that I want to say based on the timeline. The prophecy of the beast that exists once but exists no longer, and yet it will come again. Well, kind of indirectly, I've been basically explaining or revealing what this passage represents, but I will explain it a little further. Because it has to do with time again. Time that I'm saying when I kind of, on my last video, mentioned that I might be sounding kind of confusing when I'm trying to explain that we're on the third millennium, but yet it should be the seventh millennium, and that's because of the time being changed and how it has to be do with the wounded head and all this kind of stuff. It really has to do with exactly that. The time was, it existed, then it did not exist anymore because it got changed, but it exists again, if it makes any sense. Anyway, I thought I'd explain that passage, which is very hard to understand in this world. A lot of people try to interpret a lot of these passages way another way, which is okay, I guess. It all probably means well. And another thing I want to mention is going back to, again, the little book, the little squirrel. I mentioned about the angel standing in the land and the sea, and I explained that it also meant fulfillment, because the beast and the first beast and the second beast have to do with the first beast coming out of the sea and the second beast coming out of the land. So it is saying that it's already done. But this passage has a lot more. It talks about when the angel screams or talks, where he hears the loud voice coming from the roar of the lion. That has some interpretation to do too, but I'm not going to get into that. And it talks about, at the same time, the seven thunders spoke, and also I not need to talk about that. And also, when you hear the seventh angel blow the trumpet, that's when you know it's coming to fulfillment. But at the very end, the angel says something about, come here and eat the little book. When you eat the little book, it will taste sweet in your mouth, but it will turn sour in your stomach. Well, like I've been saying, it's all metaphor. It's not a real book, but it's digesting what this passage is trying to say. For me, digesting what it's saying right there, it only means something very personal in all my studies, because it actually represents that when I digest and it tastes sweet in my mouth, I get feeling good because it's sweet. And that's only because it's been 27, almost 28 years, waiting a long time for this. And now, because it's sweet, I know it's coming to the end, coming to the fulfillment. But it turned sour in my stomach. So because it turned sour in my stomach, I get a little troubled, a little concerned, a little worried about the other things that I've been saying that I need to explain later about closure, because that's tribulation times, and technically it'll be more tormented times, but it's okay. It has to happen, and it is God's doing. So we have to trust that God knows what He's doing. Basically, that's it. So, and another thing I need to mention is that I made a mistake when I mentioned the Zion, since Zion came about in my last video. I mentioned that Zion was well, I was trying to explain that because Mount Zion is kind of like in time of Jesus, which is His beginning. That's when Mount Zion is mentioned, and now in Revelations it's mentioned as daughter Zion or sister Zion, meaning that it's like the daughter or sister mountain to the real mountain, but to being a metaphor of significance again of those mountains, which are measures of time, the heads. You get it? So anyway, the mistake I made is that I mentioned that it was the sixth head, the sixth mountain. And technically it's more the seventh, because it has to do with also the key word Jerusalem. The New Jerusalem also signifies a new beginning. So we have kind of like the beginning of Jesus' time and now coming to the end. But Jerusalem, because it was the beginning, now it's a key word that is going to be a new beginning, a new birth, which is a new time. The new measure of time, which is the seventh seal, the seventh head, the seventh millennium. It all has to do with disclosure. So I also mentioned Israel being a key word, which is kind of being mentioned at the end of at this closure also, because I explained how it doesn't have to only represent the Israelis, but it has to represent all people, because of we're all children of the 12 tribes, which is the beginning. Now we're talking the beginning all the way back in the Old Testament when Jacob was given the name Israel, and because of that has to do with this whole history of the timeline that I've been trying to explain. So when it's talking about the Israelis, for example, the rebellious house of Israel, in our times and times before, in the past, it exists with people, all kinds of people, and that's part of what God is saying. He mentions that a lot in the Old Testament, but also in the New Testament. It's like the rebellious house of Israel, which is why he has to come and take care of it, and Jesus is giving the testimony of his time, and turning in the opening key to the new kingdom, which is what he came to proclaim, the kingdom of God. So I guess I failed to mention. Well, I didn't fail to mention, but this is kind of like I'm already like wanting to end videos on me explaining the timeline and maybe going into something else on my next videos. And I probably will come up with some other passages, you know, because it's all over, where I could use more examples, but I will just end now. And like, for example, I haven't mentioned some of the passages in Revelations, like the two witnesses, the seven bowls, the seven plagues, King of Kings. Um, there's just too many that I haven't even mentioned or tried to interpret what what their significance is. And perhaps I have used some of those passages indirectly, haven't really mentioned them because, like I say, it's all over the place. It goes hand in hand. One goes hand in hand with the other. And like I also mentioned, that it's heavenly event and an earthly event, and like I'm mentioning Zion and Jerusalem, that's because that's part of the prophecy of like a heavenly event, like the angels and all these people that have already earned their white robes that are with God. They already know, they're already singing the victory song, actually, that it is his time is about to just like really come to a grip. So that's about all I want to say at this point. I do have something I came up with, a passage that I want to read from the Bible. It's very short, and it's from the book of Isaiah. Since I mentioned Zion, and I've been trying to explain a little bit about that keyword Zion, having to do with significance of fulfillment. It is in Isaiah chapter 30, verse, it's part of 25 and 26. On the day of the great slaughter, when the towers fall, the light of the moon will be like that of the sun, and the light of the sun will be 7 times greater, like the light of 7 days. I'm not going to try to interpret any of that. I'm only reading it so that maybe you can think about it with everything that I've been saying. You know, let's see if you can kind of digest any significance of what the metaphor is coming from that passage. And then another, I think I had another passage from Luke, let's see, that I want to read. Since I've been explaining this timeline, and for a lot of people, you might put him to a wonder, and a lot of people probably aren't going to believe me. You know, I'm just another person just doing my own interpretations, and might be considered as an extremist or whatever. But I will read this, and this is from Luke 12, verse 32. Do not be afraid, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. I will leave you with my little saying. Let's allow God into our hearts so our soiled thoughts may go away. So I thank you, and we'll be talking some more. Bye.